3 spine-chilling true stories of terrifying encounters alone in the haunted woods revealed. Lisa grabbed her kids, Emma and Jake, and drove to Whispering Pines Forest, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and anxiety. They needed this getaway. But as they entered the woods, a sense of dread settled over her like a cold blanket against her skin. The whispering leaves seemed to murmur warnings, their rustling more urgent than before. Shadows danced along the trails, teasing the sunlight that barely broke through the canopy of trees overhead. "Look, Mommy! A squirrel!" Emma shouted, breaking the tension. Lisa barely registered it. Every creak of the branches sent chills racing down her spine. She shook it off, focusing instead on conjuring happy moments for her kids. After all, this was the place where her husband once told stories of adventures in nature, a time now laced with grief and longing. As dusk painted the forest in deep blues and purples, they set up camp near a gnarled oak. The twins giggled, their voices echoing softly, but as the last light slipped away, an unsettling silence wrapped around them. Lisa remembered the old tales, gloomy stories that whispered of lost souls and creatures haunting these woods to keep families in check. She'd always dismissed them, but now, she couldn't shake the eerie feeling that crept into the corners of her mind. "Hey guys, let's take a selfie," she said, trying to lighten the mood. As she framed them against the towering pines, the photo flickered with something uncanny. Horrified, Lisa blinked at the image, a dark shape hovering just beyond her kids, a shadow that sent her heart racing. Just a trick of the light, she told herself. Before she could shake it off, the air turned heavy. The children's laughter vanished, suffocated by an unnatural hush. And then she heard it, the soft, sinister whispers. They slithered through the trees, curling around her ears. "Lisa! Lisa! Mom?" Jake's voice trembled, drawing her back to reality. She turned quickly, expecting to find her son beside her, only to be met with the chilling void of space where he'd stood just moments before. Panic seized her. "Jake?" The hairs on her arms stood straight as she scrambled along, heart pounding like a drum. Shadows flickered at the edge of her vision, darting behind the trees. It was then she noticed the scribbles on the bark, ominous signs of something buried deep in the woods, a legacy of fear that twisted through her gut. And then the whispers grew louder, surrounding her. "Your trust is misplaced, Lisa." A wave of sickness rolled through her. She stumbled back, stumbling over roots, her cell phone in her hand, only to find a dead signal. No bars, no help. The reality of isolation gripped her chest. "Emma!" She screamed, instinct driving her deeper into the woods, away from the persuasive whispers that tugged at her mind. But just as dread settled in, a glimmer of red caught her eye, Jake's jacket, disappearing among the trees. No! As she chased after him, a gut-wrenching thought struck her. What if those who welcomed her with smiles in the neighborhood weren't just friendly, but part of something else, something darker? At that moment, she realized the folklore wasn't just a story, it was a warning she'd been too late to heed. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Lisa pressed forward, but time felt warped, the air thick with sinister tension. With every heartbeat echoing in her ears, doubt gnawed at her resolve. What was out there in the darkness? Shadows loomed ever closer, their sharp edges flickering with every fraying thread of hope. Every fleeting moment dragged her closer to a nightmare she couldn't afford to face, knowing her children's safety hinged on whatever malevolence lurked beyond. As she glimpsed the flickering red of Jake's jacket, a chill swept down her spine. She would find him before whatever haunted these woods found them first. Lisa stumbled through the underbrush, her breath quickening with each frantic step. The whispers echoed like a tangible weight, as if the very trees were alive with dark intent. Just ahead, shadows twisted and shifted, making her doubt her own vision. Were those branches moving? Or was it something else watching her? "Jake!" she yelled again, her voice hoarse. Panic clawed at her throat, choking off any hope that she might find him. Every rustle seemed to mock her desperation, an unseen force laughing at her misery. She swiped at the branches, brushing aside leaves that clung like skeletal fingers to her arms. The sun had sunk too low, the darkness was ripe, swallowing everything in its path. Each breath felt colder than the last, and she could almost taste the fear curling in her gut. At last, she reached an opening and paused, peering into the gloom. There, illuminated briefly by a flash of moonlight, was her son's beloved red jacket, crumpled at the base of a twisted tree. A cruel chill swept through her. "Jake!" She knelt beside the jacket, fingers trembling. This was the moment she feared. She had to face it. The forest taunted her with shadows that edged closer, eager to drown her in despair. Tearing her gaze from the jacket, she screamed his name one more time, the sound tearing from her throat jagged and raw. "Come back. Please." But only silence replied that in the stillness, dread coiled tighter around her heart. Something shifted in the corner of her vision, a darker shadow slinking between the trees. She spun, blasting into the darkness. "Get away from my kids." A rush of adrenaline fueled her feet, driving her deeper into the woods against her better judgment. As the warnings echoed in her mind, branches scraped against her arms, scratching fragile skin as she pushed through. She could hear whispers again, and now they weren't just calling her name. They were deeper, darker, shadows echoing human voices, melding into an unnatural chorus. "Lisa, join us!" The tree remembers their calls pierced her, igniting a knot of fear that exploded in her chest. She stumbled back, gasping for air. The urge to flee became unbearable, yet something pulled her deeper, part curiosity, part insanity. Or was it a more sinister force guiding her? "Mommy?" A whisper, soft but frantic. Her heart leaped. "Mommy!" Jake's voice. "Jake!" She ran toward the sound, forging ahead with renewed hope. The moon revealed a narrow path, and she could see a figure in the distance, shrouded in midnight shadows. "Jake!" But as she approached, the silhouette blurred and shifted, a distorted shape that made her stomach churn. This wasn't her son. This was something else, lurking, hungry for despair. Gripped by panic, she scrambled backward, but something wrapped around her ankle, pulling her down. Struggling to break free, she felt the ground beneath her shudder, as if the forest itself was alive and taking a breath. The whispers crescendoed, scratching at her sanity, as a blinding light flickered to life in the emptiness. "No, no!" She gasped, unwilling to succumb to whatever cruel game was afoot. Then, in a fleeting moment of clarity, she realized that beneath all this horror lay something sinister, a secret longing to keep her there forever, as part of the wood's eternal feast. The whispers grew louder, feeding on her fear, entwining with her thoughts. The light began to pulse, and for an instant, she saw faces twisted, joyless, lost. They begged her to stay, to join them in their dark eternity. Suddenly, the whispers stopped. The pull grew stronger, despair turning into rage within her. "I will not be another lost soul," Lisa screamed, summoning every ounce of strength she had left. But as she broke free from the grip of the unseen roots, the darkness closed in again, swallowing her retreat in a swallow of shadows. She dashed back the way she'd come, lungs burning, heart hammering the rhythm of survival. "Emma!" She shouted now, desperate for both of her children. But the forest was no longer her ally. It felt alive. Trees twisted like canyons, branches poised to trap her. With every frantic step, Lisa felt the uproar of the unseen forces growing more erratic. But just as she thought the woods had claimed her, a voice emerged from the void, clearer and stronger. "Mommy!" Help me. The haunting call of Emma wrenched her heart. Where was she? The uncertainty gnawed at her until she realized she had to decide: continue to flee or stand firm and uncover whatever dark truths drove to keep her trapped. As she tightened her jaw, fueled by a mix of maternal instinct and choice, she felt her hand instinctively reach into her pocket, her husband's old pocket knife. It wasn't much, but it could mean everything. Hold on, baby. I'm coming. And with that, she plunged back into the depths of the forest, ready to face whatever demons awaited, but little did she know, those demons were not the only thing she had to fear. The forest floor seemed alive beneath Lisa's feet, twisting with every step she took. Her heart raced as she pushed through the suffocating darkness, desperately following Emma's voice. How far had she come? The world felt surreal, the shadows looming closer, feeling thicker. Mommy. Where are you? Emma's voice echoed, now laced with a frantic urgency, making Lisa's skin prickle. Just hold on. I'm coming. She shouted back, her voice breaking. The knife in her pocket felt heavy, a lead weight against her thigh, reminding her of its promise, a weak defense against the terror encroaching on her sanity, but the forest whispered anew, its haunting cadence mingling with her daughter's cries. Lisa, stay with us, join your children. The air thickened with dread, she could almost see their faces, hollow eyes, smiles stretching too wide, devoid of warmth. She stumbled, catching herself on a gnarled root, forcing her focus. This isn't real. This isn't real. The mantra tumbled from her lips, a desperate attempt to ground herself amid the madness. But how could she be sure? Those voices felt all too real, beckoning her into their dark embrace. Mommy. Emma cried again, clearer now, yet more urgent. Over the rising tide of whispers, Lisa sensed her child was near. She sprinted, praying the call would lead her to Emma's safety, but the forest shifted as she moved, paths realigning, and snaring her further in their tangled web. Suddenly, a glimmer caught her eye like the last fall of a fleeting sunbeam. She veered left, straight toward its beckoning glow. What had once been mere shadows transformed into a clearing, bathed in an ethereal light. Emma? She breathed, each syllable laced with hope, but the light flickered once, then vanished as quickly as it had appeared, plunging her back into a haunting darkness. A chilling gust sliced through the air, making her shiver. An overwhelming sense of wrongness descended. She took a cautious step forward, the ground squelching beneath her feet, no longer solid earth, but a slick mud of decay and despair, and then she saw it. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient tree, colossal and twisted, its bark grotesque like the faces Lisa had seen before. Branches hung low, swarming with a thick mist that obscured its base. Was that a figure? A silhouette was wrapped around the trunk, shifting and quivering as if drawn into the tree itself. Mommy. A small hand tore through the mist, tiny fingers grasping for release. It was Emma. Lisa's heart exploded with simultaneous relief and terror. Emma. I'm coming. She surged toward her daughter, hand outstretched, but the tree loomed larger as she approached, its branches stretching towards her like wretched hands. Leave her. Let her go. The scream erupted from her throat, raw and fierce. But in response, the whispers returned, layered in sinister delight. No, join us. The ground trembled again, pulsing with energy. As Lisa reached for Emma, the figure around the tree flickered, revealing a face, an impossibly familiar face twisted in agony, eyes wide with horror. Mom, help. Emma's voice melded painfully with the faces of the damned, creating a symphony of desperate cries. The earth trembled, shadows writhed closer, threatening to engulf her. Sweat dripped down her back, the smell of rotting leaves choking her. She grasped the knife tightly, heart pounding in her chest. Would it be enough? Would it free her daughter from the nightmare? But even as doubt sank into her mind, the choice loomed. Fight or flee. With a primal scream, she charged forward, ready to confront whatever horror lay ahead. The tendrils of shadow surged around her, hungry and alive, teasing the edge of her sanity as she lunged for the light. What awaited her could be salvation or damnation. Just as she reached out for Emma, the world exploded in darkness. The whispers were deafening, urging her to succumb to the darkness, the tree yearning to reclaim what it had lost. What haunting truth awaited Lisa in the grip of that ancient tree? Would the answer set them free, or trap them forever in its dark embrace? The darkness swallowed her whole, a thick shroud pressing down on Lisa as she fought against the pull of the shadows. Shapes flickered and danced in her peripheral vision, faces distorted in agony, twisting and writhing like the roots of the very tree that loomed before her. Time lost meaning in that place. Seconds felt like hours as she struggled to comprehend the nightmare that enveloped her. "Emma!" she screamed, her voice fractured and echoing. The shadows pressed in, suffocating. She stumbled, reaching for what she hoped was her daughter. The knife felt slick in her palm, cold and unyielding. A glint of silver in the darkness, but would it truly be her defense? An icy wind howled through the clearing, a sound like wailing souls as it chilled her bones. The specters in the fog whispered her fears. "You're too late, they cannot escape." It was almost a lullaby, luring her into despair. With every heartbeat, the whispers intensified, pressing in on her. They throbbed, matching the pulse in her ears, chanting a litany of despair. "Join the lost! Join the lost, shut up!" she screamed, her voice raw. "I want tea." She steadied herself, gripping the knife tighter. Then, Emma's small hand slipped past the haze, reaching out toward her. "Mommy, please." The desperation in her voice sparked a flicker of resolve in Lisa. With a surge of adrenaline, she lunged forward once more. The world twisted around her, the ground reaching up to hold her back with sticky fingers of mud. The knife sparkled in the fading light, its edges sharp and glinting. "I'm coming, sweetheart." But as she approached, the familiar face that had flickered before emerged once again through the mist. Lisa almost fell back in horror. It was her own face, marred by desperation and twisted in eternal anguish. The resemblance was uncanny. It was as if the tree pulsed with generations of pain, each round of wretchedness feeding its strength. "You must join us, Lisa," it hissed, its voice a terrible echo of her own. "To break the cycle, you must give willingly." No. The word tore from her throat. She stumbled, panting, but the pull was undeniable. Memories surged through her, of laughter and warmth, of moments gone by that led her to this very instant, standing in the face of all she had lost. She wouldn't let it take her, she wouldn't give in. She surged forward, blade raised, eyes locked on the tendril of the mist that wrapped around Emma's wrist, constricting with each heartbeat. "I don't care what you want." She brought the knife down with a defiant roar, hope reigniting her spirit just long enough to break the binding grip of the shadows, but as she cut through the fog, a horrifying realization struck her. The shadows recoiled, only to lunge back, angrier, feeding off her fear. She felt it wrapping around her, as if the tree itself pulsed with life, hungering for her essence. "We are not done with you," the voices echoed from the trees, deep and resonating like thunder. Scattered fragments of light began to dim, flickering like a dying star. "Mommy!" Emma cried again, her face now twisted with fear as the shadows moved to claim their prize. Lisa turned, the knife raised, panic filling her. Would she have to sacrifice herself to save her daughter? But in her heart, a sliver of hope remained, the bond of a mother's love. She couldn't let it end like this. With a primal scream, she charged, refusing to be consumed. Just as she hurtled forward, the ground cracked beneath her, fissures opening like hungry mouths. Black tendrils shot forth, wrapping around her arms and legs, yanking her back toward the ancient tree. What would happen next? Would they be dragged into the dark forever, or could the light in her heart defeat the shadows? The knife trembled in her hand, and as she was pulled closer to the tree, she felt time freeze. In the very last instant, another voice broke through the din, a voice so familiar, so powerful, the voice of her own mother, calling from beyond. You must choose. A choice hung suspended in the air, a desperate gamble on the edge of oblivion. What path lay ahead for Lisa and Emma in that foreboding moment? Would the ancestral nature of the tree become their final foe or their salvation? The ground shook as Lisa was yanked toward the tree, the dark tendrils squeezing around her limbs, cold as death, tightening their grip. Her breath quickened, the air around her thickening with a musty odor of decay, mingling with her rising panic. In that moment of torment, uncertainty clawed at her thoughts. What choice lay before her? "Mommy!" Emma's voice echoed in the void, a haunting plea that pierced her heart. Lisa twisted her head, catching a glimpse of her daughter. The fear in Emma's eyes was raw and palpable, a reflection of the terror that coursed through them both. Lisa felt the weight of despair suffocating her, the shadows whispering promises of surrender, yet she could not break. "Fight it!" she shouted, though her own resolve was crumbling just as fast. The knife felt heavy, a leaden burden as the darkness pressed in around them, a living entity intent on dragging them into its abyss. Together, Emma. With a surge of ferocity, she yanked her arm, desperately trying to free herself from the grasp of the shadows. The tendrils shrieked, thrashing violently, but her momentum only seemed to energize the evil surrounding them. They writhed and wrapped tighter, like the hands of lost souls reaching from the grave. Lisa cast one final glance behind her, toward that familiar visage straining to grab her attention, her own face twisted in sorrow. "You will never win." She spat at the apparition, searching for any sign of strength within. The words felt like a lifeline, reverberating with defiance through the darkness. Then, in the chaos, clarity hit her like a flash. The voice of her mother reverberated in her mind, a warm light in the suffocating void. "You must choose." It was not just a call, but a binding truth. Her mother, who had once fought against her own battles, now guiding her through this horror. A choice. The very thought crystallized her fear. Would she choose to surrender, to save herself at the cost of her daughter? Or would she brave the darkness for Emma's sake? The shadows entwined with her memories, each twist a haunting reminder of love and loss, but they also anchored her resolve. She would not let history repeat itself. Let her go. "I'll do whatever it takes." The knife ignited with a vibrant glow in her trembling hand as she thrust it into the earth, creating a barrier of light that pushed back against the encroaching shadows. It felt as though the very air turned electric, like the calm before a storm. With that act of sacrifice, the dark screeches intensified, reverberating through the night air like a chorus of angry banshees. Emma shrieked as the tendril binding her slipped momentarily, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Mommy!" But as shadows writhed in protest, something shifted. The knife shone brighter, and the cowl of darkness began to recede, retreating from the intense light. Their distorted forms screamed, echoing in furious disbelief, but without her fears to siphon from, they had no choice but to vanish. Yet as light poured into the clearing, illuminating the twisted faces of the shadows, they revealed their truth. They weren't just figments of terror, they were memories clawing to reclaim their piece of flesh. Lisa's face stared back at her, drenched in sorrow and longing, a reflection of a choice she brushed against once. That in an instant, the shadows leapt back in anguish, as if someone had set their world aflame. Yet still, the deep-rooted tree loomed, waiting, watching with eyes that hinted at ancient knowledge. What would the cost of freedom be now that Emma was free? The brightness flickered, dimming as Lisa's heart raced. She felt it, the internal struggle in their bond, like heartstrings about to snap. "Emma, hold on to me." But even as she reached out, shadows still pulled at them both, testing her resolve. Would light turn on her when she needed it most? An earth-shattering rumble spilled from below, unsettled and unfamiliar, and the remnants of fog began to swirl, thickening again. In that moment, Lisa knew they weren't safe just yet. The choice may not be over, it might just be beginning. Was there more darkness hidden within that ancient tree, waiting to unleash its final torment? Would it try to reclaim what it lost, once and for all? The ground trembled beneath them, vibrations pulsing like a heartbeat, urging them to flee. Shadows clawed at her ankles, desperate for a hold. Lisa tightened her grip on the knife, feeling its warmth wane with the thickening darkness. "Emma, stay close!" she shouted, her voice strained, drowning in fear. Emma stumbled beside her, eyes wide, face pallid as the growing fog wrapped them tighter. It swirled above like a malevolent creature, whispering dreadful secrets, voices she recognized. It felt like memories, but twisted into something malicious. Every step away from the tree sent icy fingers of dread creeping under Lisa's skin. The knife, once a beacon of hope, now hummed with an unsettling energy. She could almost hear it, a low growl resonating through the air as the shadows encircled them again, drawn back by the promise of darkness. Just then, an echo pierced the mist. "Mommy!" Lisa's heart skipped. That voice so familiar, yet laced with anguish. It felt like snapping a fragile thread that held her sanity. "No! I won't lose you again." She pushed forward, but the mists thickened, wrapping around her limbs, dragging her back toward the tree, pulling her closer to the blackened roots that seemed to pulse like a living thing. "Fight it, Lisa!" echoed her mother's voice once more, urging her through the veil of panic. "You must be strong." But strength was slipping, and as she stumbled, shadows danced with malevolent glee. They claimed her despair, inflating with her fear. "Emma!" she cried, turning back to see her daughter, caught like a moth in the grip of the unseen. The flames of their bond flickered, threatened to extinguish. The air grew colder. Lisa could feel the shadows searching, ransacking her mind for memories. They were probing, looking for her weakest points, the darkest corners of her heart, and they were winning. Figures began to take shape within the mist, ghastly reflections of people she once knew. Their faces were twisted, mouths without sound, shapeless whispers commanding her to yield. "No!" she screamed, clenching the knife tightly. But the weight of inevitability pressed against her. More echoes surrounded her, a chorus of familiar cries, of laughter that turned to sobs, lamenting in a dark symphony that reverberated through her bones. The more she fought, the tighter the tendrils constricted about her soul. Emma reached out for her, fingers trembling, desperate. "Mommy, please!" At that moment, something within Lisa snapped. All at once, every fragment of love, determination, and sacrifice surged. The light did flicker but still lived as an ember buried deep. With an audacious cry, she plunged the knife once more into the earth, grounding her strength into the soil, calling forth hidden power. A blinding light burst forth, radiating outwards, scattering shadows like leaves in a gale. The lost voices howled in pain, torn from her reality as the light grew. Lisa grasped Emma's hand harder, pulling her through, away from the swirling horror. But the darkness still writhed, feeding on their desperation, furious at being starved. As the brightness extinguished the phantoms, the tree shook violently, its bark splintering to reveal gaping wounds, almost alive, dangerous and hungry. Lisa's heart raced. What now? With one last desperate gaze towards the illuminated remnants of the shadows, she felt something chill her to the bone. The tree, now understanding they were united, spoke with a voice as ancient as time, echoing through the fog. "You've opened a door, but doors can lead to nightmares or freedom." Frozen, they lingered as the ground trembled once more, the roots of the tree evolving, expanding. What waited beyond? The darkness was not done with them yet. Lisa felt dread coil in her stomach. "We need to run." Yet, as they turned to flee, a hand grasped at her shoulder, a familiar grip, vengeful and insistent. Was this the end of their escape? What lay behind them in the swirling mists? "Don't look back," the voice whispered, chilling her to the core. But could they afford to ignore it? Lisa's breath quickened as the grip tightened on her shoulder. She forced herself to turn, fearing the sight of something lost, something she wished to forget. The fog parted just enough to reveal the gaunt face of her mother, twisted in a smile that sent a shiver racing through Lisa's spine. "Mom?" It tumbled from her lips, a fruitless question mingled with desperation. The figure inched closer, eyes glowing with a sickly light. "Please, I need you to let us go." But the shadow's embrace closed in tighter, a ghostly reminder of choices made too long ago. The grip shifted, fingers entwining with darkness. "You shouldn't have come back," the apparition whispered, her voice a rasping echo of love turned sour. "Stop. You're not my mom," Lisa shouted, lurching forward, dragging Emma with her. But as they sank deeper into the fog, the cries grew louder, merging into a cacophony. "You abandoned us. You abandoned me." Each word twisted like a knife, harrowing memories flooding back, turning her resolve into anguish. She stumbled, her heart battered by guilt and rage. Shadows crept closer, their laughter cold and mocking, feeding on her turmoil. Emma's small hand tugged insistently at Lisa's. "Mommy, we have to go." It ignited something in Lisa. "You're right. We can't waste time." Gritting her teeth, she yanked the knife from the ground. Its blade gleamed like a beacon in the dark, an anchor to reality. Sinking her heels into the ground, she shouted, "Stay back." The roar of her voice fractured the air like thunder. With a quick motion, she swung the knife, slicing the thick blanket of fog, as if parting a curtain to reveal the truth hidden within. The shadows recoiled, a torrent of shrieks and hisses filling the space. For a moment, she caught a glimpse of an escape, a flicker of something bright, an alley between the trees. "That way!" she yelled. Emma's eyes widened. They rushed toward the light, Lisa's heart pounding with renewed determination. But another whisper stabbed through her focus, a nostalgic flicker of childhood. "Mommy, come back, don't listen," she urged Emma, breathless as a chill wrapped around her neck. The shadows surged, eager to reclaim their lost prey, lashing out with unseen hands. The mist thrummed with energy. They darted between trees, each step a battle against the grip of despair. Lisa fought against her memories clawing at her mind, refusing to let them chain her. "We're almost there," she shouted, sensing the light brightening around them, but an inky darkness surged from the ground, writhing underfoot like a living thing. Roots sprang up, trying to ensnare them, malicious whispers rising in a thunderous crescendo. "Stay, don't leave, run." With every ounce of strength, she propelled Emma forward. Just as they plunged into the brighter patch of light, something struck Lisa from behind, sending her sprawling to the ground. The knife slipped from her grasp, vanishing into the depths of shadow. Breath catching, despair washed over her. "Not again, Mom." Emma's terrified scream echoed as she pulled back, battling against the darkness trying to drag them apart. "No!" Lisa screamed, lunging toward her daughter, but the shadows swirled into a vortex, a gaping maw formed from the suffering of the lost. "I won't let you take her." As the darkness threatened to close in, she felt an unfamiliar rush of anger, raw and electric. "Let her go!" she roared, summoning the courage from deep within, her heart igniting with a fierce energy. With a single desperate lunge, she unleashed the last of her strength, her spirit connecting with the very roots of the earth below. The ground trembled, vibrating through her bones, and she felt it, the trees alive, heavy with power and stories of those who had fallen to the same darkness. But from the depths of her defiance, a horrifying realization emerged. The shadows were not just shadows, they were memories, reflections of what she had lost. Could she fight them? Could she embrace the pain to find release? "Mommy!" Emma's cry sliced through Lisa's thoughts, dragging her back to the present. She knew now what she had to do, but could she confront the darkness in time? "Hold on, Emma. I'm coming." As she surged forward, Lisa braced herself for the confrontation about to unfold, a storm of shadows swirling around her like a tempest. What would answer her plea for strength? With frightened eyes, she plunged deeper into the swirling mists, the fight only just beginning. The echoes grew louder, cloaked in harrowing urgency. Would she lose everything again, or could she muster the power to save her child? And that's when the whispers rose. "You brought her here, now you must suffer the consequences." The darkness pulsed around Lisa, wrapping her in a chilling embrace. Each breath she took felt heavy with despair. Emma's presence was a precious weight, anchoring her in reality, but the shadows were relentless, their clawing whispers creeping closer. You will pay, you will pay. Lisa squeezed her eyes shut, trying to drown out the sound, but it only grew louder. With each beat of her heart, an image flashed in her mind, her mother, as she used to be, warm and loving. But that image was drowned by the grotesque twist of her mother's face, the shadows distorting her mother's smile into a nightmarish grin. The ground underneath them quivered, the darkness shifting in a dance of chaos. They needed to move, but a weight pulled her down, a certainty that the shadows were waiting for her to slip, just for a moment. Emma, keep running. Don't look back. Mommy. Emma's voice trembled, filled with fear, resonating through the chaos. The root-like shadows lunged forward, curling around Emma's feet, desperate fingers trying to yank her back. Lisa's heart split at the sight of her daughter's terrified eyes. Let her go. The strength of Lisa's voice surprised even herself, it carried a defiance that surprised the shadows, if only for a moment. With a fierce determination, she charged into the swirling darkness, feeling the shadows clawing at her skin like icy tendrils. We won. To be taken. What she needed was hope, and with it came a blinding flash of memory, images of childhood laughter, whispers of bedtime stories, the taste of warm cookies slowly fading into the embrace of memories lost. I remember you. Lisa shouted, her voice ringing back with fierce clarity. I remember all of you. You will not take us. A light flickered in the distance, cutting through the choking fog. With a newfound surge of energy, she pulled Emma closer, eyes locked onto the sliver of brilliance. There. We can reach it. Another howl erupted, shaking the very air. The shadows conjoined, morphing into a beast of despair, eyes glimmering with malice, thrumming with Lisa's deepest fears. You cannot escape. Lisa's heart raced, pumping adrenaline through her veins. Just a bit further. Hold my hand. They darted towards the light, but the ground shook violently beneath them, and the roots lashed out, ferocious and desperate. Each time Emma stumbled, Lisa cursed her own failure, every cry feeling like a dagger to her heart. She regained her footing, yanking her daughter back to her side. We're almost there. We can't stop. But time began to stretch, each moment teetering on the edge of oblivion. The shadows closed in, their laughter morphing into a desperate scream, horrifying echoes summoning memories of every mistake, every regret, every moment of abandonment. Leave her, they hissed, voices weaving into a sinister symphony of despair. The grotesque face of her mother loomed ahead, whispering her name, pulling at the seams of reality. You think you can escape? You are trapped in your own fears. A primal scream erupted within her. You're wrong. I am not afraid of you. But just then, the ground bucked and twisted. A root snaked around her ankle, pulling her down into the darkness. Emma's terrified scream pierced her resolve. Mommy, don't. With a final surge of strength, Lisa wrenched herself free, a determined roar escaping her lips. We will not be part of this nightmare. She lunged forward, arms outstretched, as the light danced like a promise just out of reach, almost tangible now. The shadows surged one last time, howling in fury, arms of despair reaching out. Could she break free, or would this darkness consume them both? And as she reached for that fleeting light, the shadows unleashed their final, devastating secret. You brought her here, now suffer the weight of your choices. As the shadows tightened around her like a vice, Lisa wondered if she could find the strength to break the cycle. Would she confront the truth, or would it swallow them whole? Time slowed as the darkness surged forward, ready to claim its prize. And in that terrifying moment a choice hung heavy in the air. What price would Lisa pay to save her child? The world around Lisa shattered into fragments of dread. The light flickered, teasing her like a fleeting memory. She could almost touch it, but the shadows clawed at her, relentless, cold fingers digging deep. Mommy! Emma screamed, her small voice a piercing shard in the enveloping darkness. Every heartbeat echoed in Lisa's ears, a cacophony of terror. Hold on tight. she yelled, her voice barely rising above the din. She plunged forward, dragging Emma along, each step a battle against the weight of despair pulling them back. The ground split beneath them. A deep crevice formed, jagged and dark. From its depths, grotesque faces emerged, twisting shapes, each one resembling someone she once knew. Old friends, distant relatives, all warped, their eyes hollow and hungry. "Come back to us, Lisa," they beckoned, voices a haunting melody that echoed in her mind. "You owe us no," Lisa shouted, pushing through the heavy mist of confusion and fear. She couldn't let them drag her down into that madness. "You're not real." The beast of shadows roared, reverberating through the air like thunder. It lunged, snapping at her heels, a black maw ready to consume her. The weight of lost memories bore down on her, forcing her to relive every choice, every regret. What if she had protected them all better? "Mommy!" Each cry from Emma tugged at a different piece of her heart. The shadows transformed, slithering and writhing like serpents, desperate to sow discord. They stretched like fingers wanting to drag her back, enveloping her in their dark tendrils. The light grew dimmer. Lisa felt her resolve start to flicker as visions of her past swirled around her, moments of failure, the echoes of laughter now tainted with sorrow. "You can't escape." The grotesque figures snarled, their faces twisting into a ghastly chorus of regret, mimicking the faces of those she once cherished. "You chose this path. You're the reason for your pain. Stop it." Lisa cried, rage mixing with despair. She pushed against the cycling shadows, ignoring the cold wrapping around her limbs. "I am not defined by you." With every ounce of strength, she grasped Emma's hand tighter, squeezing it to bolster them both. Just as the shadows lunged again, the ground gave beneath them. They fell, but then the light flared once more vibrant than before. Lisa saw it clearing a way through the chaos, beckoning like an old friend. "Run!" They grasped each other tighter, plunging into the blinding brilliance. Lisa felt the warmth of the light wrap around them, lifting the oppressive weight of the shadows only for a moment. As the dark clawed at their heels, she shouted, "I believe in us." Suddenly, the path transformed. Instead of an escape, they landed in a dense forest cloaked in fog. Still gripped by darkness, the trees loomed tall and menacing, their shadows sprawling like sinister arms reaching out. The air was saturated with the cloying scent of damp earth and decay. "Where are we?" Emma whispered, her voice trembling. "There has to be a way out," Lisa said, panic rising in her throat, choking her. A rustle echoed close by. Something was watching them, hidden in the shadows among the trees. And with each breath, a chilling realization struck. They weren't alone. "Mommy?" Emma's eyes widened, reflecting pure terror. From the depths of that darkness, a figure stepped forward, tall and whispering, an apparition of nerve and despair. "You shouldn't have come here," it murmured, voice weaving through the trees, chilling the very air between them. Lisa's heart pounded. She could feel the darkness closing in again, yet a flicker of defiance sparked within her. "We didn't come for you. We came to escape." And as she prepared to fight against the shadows encasing her, the figure raised a hand, and a wicked smile curled over its lips. "But you can't leave. Not yet, not until your truth is revealed." As the shadows coiled tighter, Lisa felt time flutter, seconds stretching into the unknown. What truth had they uncovered? What sacrifices awaited them in this draped veil of despair? And then, as the shadows whispered in her ear, reality began to twist once more, spinning suspense around them like a web. Would they dare confront the darkness that sought to bind their fates forever? The darkness hissed, curling around Lisa and Emma, tugging, dragging them deeper into the wood. Heart pounding, Lisa felt the cold fingers of despair pressing closer, clawing at her resolve. She refused to yield, not to those lost memories and not to that lurking figure. Each moment felt heavier than the last, shadows loomed, breathing life into her worst fears. "Stay close, Emma," she whispered, her voice trembling against the oppressive weight of the night. Emma nodded, eyes wide with terror, clinging to her mother's side, haunted by the relentless whispers. You can't escape. You came to face the truth, the figure sneered, its voice curling through the trees like a serpent. Lisa could feel the cold grasp of reality twisting tighter around her, trying to crush her spirit. Listen to me. She shouted defiantly, forcing each word through the crushing fear. You don't own us. We're not afraid of you. I will face my truth. The strange power that surged through her felt like fire in freezing water. In the fleeting moments that followed, the shadows hesitated, recoiling slightly from her fierce determination. The familiar, haunting faces of her past flickered in and out, warped by the darkness, her mother among them, eyes wide with fear but softer than the rest. Mom. Emma's voice broke through the haze. Lisa grasped her hand tighter, rallying her courage. We are stronger than this. She took a deep breath, pushing every fear aside. The shadows might thrive on her weaknesses, but she wouldn't allow them to dictate her fate. With fierce determination, she plunged forward, breaking through the fog. And there it was, the ancient tree waited, standing tall, its gnarled roots shifting with anticipation. But this time, the whispers were different, they were hesitant. You've come to claim what you've lost, the tree murmured, its voice resonating with the weight of ages. But can you sustain the truth of your choices? No. Lisa roared, the emotions boiling over within her. I'm here to rescue my daughter, not to be dragged into the darkness. You won't take us again. The ground shook as pulsing shadows collided with her words. The energy felt alive, electric, and she could sense the shadows writhing, unsettled. They hesitated. Was she disrupting their hold? Mom! Emma screamed, and in that moment, all doubt fled. Lisa then thrust the knife into the earth and let a surge of raw love fill the air. The memories that shaped her began to surge around them, joy and sorrow braided with struggle. As the dawning light shone from the blade, the air filled with warmth. The shadows shrieked in agony, lunging at the light but failing to reach it. Their hold began to slip, the myriad of faces distorting and unraveling, their power crumbling beneath the weight of unyielding light. You're not real. Lisa shouted, voice wrapped in defiance. You're just shadows born from fear. You don't control the truth of who I am. Answers from her heart surged like an unquenchable flame. This reality belonged to her, to Emma, and she would fight to protect it. With one last desperate scream, she felt the shadows collapse, a brilliance bursting forth from their fading forms. Light overtook the engulfing chaos, shattering the darkness, scattering it like leaves in a storm. Run! Lisa shouted, pulling Emma close as they raced forward, hearts pounding in unison. They broke through the thinning mist, foreboding faces melting away. The air turned crisp, and freedom beckoned ahead. They collapsed against the ground just outside the tree, lean, breathless and fervent. Mommy, we did it, sweetheart! Lisa cried, tears streaming down her cheeks, the warmth of sunlight pouring over them like a warm embrace. But even as they reveled in their freedom, remnants of the forest lay behind them, a reminder of the darkness they had faced. Yet Lisa could sense a shift. The shadows whispered like lost souls but now seemed distant, fading echoes of what had been. You're free now, Lisa murmured, clutching Emma close. Together, they had forged their own way through, unshackled from the chains of the past. With a deep breath, she whispered a quiet promise to herself. She would honor the memories, both good and bad, but never allow them to claim her again. As the sun set beyond the trees, she felt lighter, free, ready to heal. And with determination, she faced what lay ahead. Now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories filled with power and emotion. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes all the difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Get involved now.